Hello, and welcome to Talkin' Tales, where we share stories about our animal companions, their unique personalities, their zany antics, and the heartbreak of saying goodbye. I'm your host, Paul Barnett. In the previous episode, we learned about two ferrets who were research subjects that were released from a lab and joined my family as Pixel and Pretzel. In the fall of 2017, when these ladies were about 5 years old, 6 more former research subjects were in need of a home. They did not have names, and I was told that they were not used to being handled, and a few of them would express their displeasure with their teeth. I agreed to foster all 6 of them, but at the last minute, another person asked to foster one of them, so I ended up taking 5 of them home. Initially, they had a cage all to themselves, not because I wanted to isolate them, but because the main cage was at capacity. I wanted to make sure everyone had enough room and no one felt crowded, so I added a cage just for these new ferrets. I was told they were each about 1 year old. They each had a full, beautiful, healthy coat of fur, although the smallest had a shaved stomach like Pixel did initially. I watched them for a day or so to learn their personalities, so I could determine which name would fit each of them best. First up is Willow. Willow was the second smallest of the bunch. She had a slight red hue to her fur, and unique ears that were slightly more angular than everyone else's. Willow quickly relaxed and showed her playful side. She soon demonstrated 2 of her favorite activities, climbing the cage and crawling into my shoes. For the first, she would climb up the outside of the cage. Thankfully, she never went too high. At the start of playtime, something she quickly learned the schedule for, she would be waiting at the cage door, clinging to it. When I opened the door, she would continue to cling to it and swing out with the door, eventually sliding down the door to the floor so she could run around and play. During playtime, if the cage door had been pushed closed but not latched, she would run up the ramp and climb up the outside of the door, enough that she could pull on it and open it from the outside. Then she would gently slide down off the door onto the floor and run back up the ramp into the cage. She was the first ferret I ever witnessed doing this. She was also obsessed with climbing into my shoes, and it didn't matter if I was wearing them at the time. She would still try to fit in there. Trying to take photos of her for special occasions was a challenge, as she was always on the go. I had to pay close attention when opening the cage door to refill food and water. If Willow was awake or heard me, she would often run to me, then run up my arm and onto my shoulder. I didn't mind this, but didn't want her to fall or knock the food or water out of my hands. She never did any of that. She was highly active every day, until the middle of June 2022, when she started to rapidly decline. On June 20th, 2022, Willow passed away. The doctor found that Willow had a large tumor on her liver that had ruptured. Willow had just had a full exam a couple of months prior, and no tumor was present at the time, so it had to be fast-growing. Next up is Tara. Tara was a bit shorter and stockier than the other ladies, with a fluffy coat of fur and a beautiful dark nose. Despite her rough start in life, Tara was never aggressive. She didn't express any displeasure with her teeth or claws. She loved to cuddle both with her human and with her siblings. In fact, I think I have pictures of her cuddling with just about everyone at one time or another. If I ever needed to find her, I would know to look at the bottom of the nearest cuddle pile. In fact, I don't think I ever saw her napping by herself. Her favorite activity during playtime was pushing a plastic ball around with her nose, and she did that flawlessly, moving it around with such precision, control, and passion. It was as if the ball was attached to her nose. She never lost control of it, and it never rolled even a quarter inch away from her. In the winter, her fur coat grew even fluffier, and she grew what I called antennae on her forehead, dark lines of fur that developed from the top of her eyes to the top of her head. Both in her appearance and personality, She was almost Pretzel's twin. On the evening of February 22nd, 2022, we had playtime as usual. At the end of the night, I said goodnight to everyone, as I do every night. Little did I know that would be the last night for Tara. She passed in her sleep overnight. The doctor found that her spleen had ruptured, and that the spleen wall was so thin that any activity could have caused it. Thankfully, she did not experience any pain from this. The third of the 5 ladies became known as Anya. Anya was one who definitely expressed her feelings with her teeth and claws, at least initially. When she did this, I called her by her full name, Anyanka. She did not like being picked up or restrained in any way. Thankfully, after just a week or so, she realized that she was no longer a research subject, and that she was home and safe, and stopped using her teeth for anything except chewing her food. In fact, she started to enjoy being held, at least for a bit, before she wanted to run off and play. Anya and her sister Summer, who we'll learn about next, were nearly identical in appearance, even down to their nose pattern, which can often be used to tell similar ferrets apart. The only difference I could find between the two of them is that Anya had 2 little white patches of fur on her shoulders. I called these her angel wings. Of course, as the seasons changed and their coats changed, these little wings disappeared. Thankfully, Summer's nose pattern also changed slightly, so I was able to distinguish them that way. Anya was feisty and reminded me of my ferret Norma, who passed in 2012 at about 7 years old. In mid-December 2020, Anya's health suddenly declined. She was lethargic, not interested in eating, and her back legs were weak, but her blood glucose was normal. I took her to an emergency appointment. The doctor kept Anya overnight, which was extremely rare for me, and very concerning. She ended up in the doctor's care for a second night, as lab results came in and nothing made any sense. Her calcium levels were extremely high. Anya was not showing signs of improvement. I did get to visit her, but she was not alert for the majority of the time I was there. I took her friend and brother Milo when visiting her, hoping she might respond to his presence. For the most part, I'm not sure she knew either of us were there. While we were there, the next set of lab results came in, and her numbers were even worse. She needed a miracle, but one did not arrive. Early in the morning of December 14th, 2020, Anya passed in her sleep. The doctor discovered that Anya had cancer in her kidneys. There was nothing that could have been done to help her. Summer was Anya's twin in appearance, but couldn't have been more different in personality initially. Summer was very laid back and loved to be held from the very beginning. She never caused any trouble. She loved her cuddles, her soupies, and her playtime, but never climbed anything dangerous, never tried to get to areas that were off limits, never fought with any of her siblings, and never expressed any displeasure. When not playing, Summer would often be found snuggling with 1 or 2 of her siblings, or happily licking the extra soupies off of their chin, or allowing them to lick the extra soupies off of her chin. Unsurprisingly, she got along with everyone. On April 20th, 2023, Summer wasn't acting herself. She refused to eat, and her body language indicated she was in pain. I rushed her to an emergency appointment. The doctor found that Summer was in kidney failure. We started medications and supplements immediately, but we were already too late. The following morning, April 21st, 2023, Summer was clearly in pain, and we were unable to help her. Later that morning, we freed Summer from her failing body. The 5th little lady, who could have been Pixel's twin, became known as Twixel, sort of a combination of Pixel and twin, but she also had a little twinkle in her eye. She was the smallest of the five, and often traded the title of smallest ferret in my family with Pixel, with each of them often being just under 700 grams. Twixel was a little love bug. She loved two things, cuddles and soupies. Every evening at the start of playtime, Twixel would come up to me and look at me and wait. At first I thought it was because she was asking for soupies. I had given her soupies when she first joined my family and thought she had gotten used to getting them every evening. I was wrong. One day, I didn't wait for her to come up to me to ask for soupies. I gave them to her right away. When she was done, she came up to me and looked at me and waited. I wasn't sure what she wanted. I picked her up and cuddled her. It turns out that's what she wanted. Once she had enough cuddles, she was ready to play. In fact, many evenings after that, at the start of playtime, she would come up to me for cuddles first, then go play, whether there were soupies or not. She did love her soupies, though. She would even wait patiently for me to give her cuddles, such as if I was cleaning up after giving medications to some of her brothers and sisters. When not playing, Twixel could be found snuggled up with one or more of her brothers and sisters. She didn't take up much space, so she might be in a small barrel with a sibling, even though the barrel was really meant for just one ferret at a time. Her canine siblings loved interacting with her too. Her big canine brother Murphy, who didn't care to have ferrets too close to his paws when he was resting, loved attention from Twixel, and even let her lick his paws. While Pixel had an obsession with moving one of my shoes to a very specific spot, Twixel loved to climb. Me, that is. If I sat down while the ferrets were playing, Twixel would climb up on me for cuddles and run across my chest to get back to playing. Twixel enjoyed many bowls of soupies over the years, always happy to share them with her siblings. As she reached 7 years old, she needed medications for her heart and for insulinoma. That just meant even more soupies, though, so she didn't complain. She nearly made it to 8 years old, but on February 3rd, 2024, Twixel shared her final bowl of soupies with her brothers and sisters. That evening, snuggled up with some of her siblings as she often was, Twixel passed away quietly in her sleep. Her official cause of death was kidney failure, similar to her sisters Anya and Summer. And so ended, at least for now, the era of the lab girls that started in August of 2013 with Pixel and Pretzel. These ladies all had a rough start in life, and all of them had significant medical issues in their final days. But it's my sincere hope that all of the years in between were full of joy and happiness for all of them. I certainly tried to make it that way, and saw so many wonderful friendships develop between them and their siblings, and was happy that they all became comfortable with me and allowed me to hold them, and witness their zany antics, from Pixel's shoe moving, to Willow's cage door opening, Tara's mastery of plastic ball rolling, and Twixel's love of soupies. Rest in peace, ladies. If you'd like to share a story about a special pet, visit us at talkandtalespodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/talkandtales. Stories are pre-recorded, so you don't have to worry about being live on the air. And if you'd prefer to write your story, I'm happy to read it for you. Again, please get in touch via talkandtalespodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/talkandtales. That's TALKINTAILS. If you run a rescue or shelter, or know someone who does, please have them get in touch so we can feature them on an upcoming episode. If you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/talkandtales. No matter what podcast app you choose, please take a moment to rate and review the show and share it with a friend. It helps us find new listeners, which means we can bring you more stories.